The Whites are somewhat lacking across the pitch at the moment because we keep hearing rumours of Christensen is going out, Firpo is going out, Somerville and Nonto, and name after name after name leaving. But the window does have a long way to go, and Leeds have a lot of signings to make ourselves, and Leeds' interest in attacking players seems to be growing, especially when we talk about Leeds United now reportedly considering a move for Szmodics of Blackburn, the top scorer in the Championship last season. And I'll explain why this deal could be absolutely insane in a few moments, but first we need to understand that it isn't an easy deal in the slightest. Because Leeds United are not alone in the push for Szmodics, there's a lot of conversations ongoing with various different clubs. And I'm going to run through all of those right now, basically, and explain whether or not they're sort of viable, and then I'll get into what the deal might look like and why Leeds could be a sort of viable option for him. First up, we have Ipswich Town, who we know, annoyingly, are a Premier League side right now. Benefits of going there for Szmodics are surely that they can offer plenty of minutes because, yeah, they had a lot of attacking talent last season, but then again, a few of those players were in on loan, and to be honest with you, I don't quite know if it would have been enough for the Premier League. But then again, if you're Szmodics, you need to look at that and think, is there a risk of relegation? A lot of that Ipswich squad is still players that were there in League One, which means that keeping them in the long term is incredibly dangerous. Another club to go to that could be a big risk for Szmodics is Everton. They have been very at risk recently. They've had financial problem after financial problem after financial problem and just can't seem to stop breaking PSR, which, if you want to go there, is going to be incredibly spooky. In addition to that, maybe he gets plenty of minutes there because they had very little scoring outlets, so it's the same reason that they're reportedly also looking at Willie Nonto. Nonto, decent goal scorer. Szmodics, great goal scorer last season. And Everton were the second lowest scorers in the Premier League, which means that they are going to want attackers and they're going to want them to start. But my concern with that, from Szmodics' perspective, is that he doesn't fit their system much. They're very Daichi. They like a number 9 where the ball sticks, and whilst Szmodics would technically be a 10 running off him, I think it's the wide positions they need to reinforce first, hence the Nonto links. Other Premier League link includes West Ham, but I feel like that would be a basically non-starter from Szmodics' point of view because it would be incredibly daft to go to a club where Mohamed Kudus and Lucas Paqueta already are, unless they want to sell one or both of them, and he would be very, very unlikely to play very much, which he's 28. This is probably his last reasonably big contract, unless he goes for a fairly short contract. He'll sort of want to play a good amount of football and make his name at whatever club. And you have to include the fact that, like, the World Cup's coming up, and whilst Ireland very probably won't qualify, you gotta say you maybe got to shout, and you need to be playing to be in that conversation. Finally, the last club that is linked that isn't Leeds is Celtic, who, yeah, he could play a bit there, but the standard of football is horrific. Outside of Celtic and Rangers, it's probably lower in Championship, upper end League One. Scottish football, not fantastic. He would have a little bit of European football, but that effectively adds up to some qualifiers. And then if they get through the qualifiers, congrats, you get to be dicked by Barcelona, Napoli, better clubs than you. And then Leeds are also an option. And we have to admit, Leeds United, out of all the clubs I've mentioned so far, are probably not the most attractive prospect because Championship football. But there are a few things that we can definitely offer. And that is the fact that we'd offer him a starting spot in the squad because you don't sign in the Championship's top scorer from last season, only to not play him. That would be absolute suicide. There would be space for him in that first 11. He would also have a decent chance of Premier League football because, I mean, we got to third place last season. We're very much in the fight until the last moments. And honestly, I feel like if we were a little bit more together in August, we would have gone up. But that didn't happen. But we still offer sort of a chance of promotion because we've got a very, very strong side at the moment. And he also knows that he can perform at this level. There's no chance of sort of getting bought out by Ipswich, scoring 3 goals in the entire season and coming back down again like, oh, well, that was fun for a bit, but now my wage is back to where it was, and I'm just at a slightly different club. Add on to that, Farker Ball is absolutely perfect for a good number 10, and I think we're genuinely a reasonable prospect for him. But I have sort of prefaced this by saying that it would be an incredible deal for us. So what exactly would the deal look like? And I have to admit, it's not the smallest of fees. It's not a little one. Blackburn currently value him at around £15 million, and this is because in November they went and renewed his contract to sort of protect his value and make sure that they weren't going to be scrambling in this window, being like, shit, how do we keep him? Or how do we get a reasonable fee? How do we replace him? All that sort of stuff. Currently on his contract, he has 2 years left. But to me, this means that the Lancashire club basically need to sell now. If they don't sell now, then there's 1 year left on his contract next year, and the moment there is 1 year left, the sharks start swimming in the water. Value drops severely because everyone knows that you've only got 12 months and then you'll need to lose him for free anyway. So I feel like Blackburn will probably want to sell because they can get a decent sum of money right now. And in addition to that, from what I've heard, Szmodics clearly wants the move. Discussing interest in various other clubs is a very classic agent tactic. For example, the Somerville thing, where it's like, oh, Liverpool want him, Chelsea want him, etc., etc., etc. If a club wanted to keep those talks silent, and often they do, they would. But those talks get talked about, including the Somerville agent talks with Chelsea earlier, presumably by the agent, in order to gain a little bit more interest and start off a little bit of a bidding war in terms of the wages and contracts and stuff like that. To me, this screams that maybe Blackburn's attempt to extend his contract even further isn't working out, and I heard from another source earlier that SSM, his agency, are currently struggling to agree a new Rovers contract anyway. So everything is starting to add up here towards a Sammy Szmodics move. And the same source did say that he'd likely push for a Premier League move, but having looked at all the things that are reasons and stuff why it might potentially be a good move for him to come to Leeds, I feel confident. And the fact is, we're still part of the conversation. From the agent discussions, it's still like, well, we've got West Ham and Everton and Leeds. The talks about interest are still alluding to Leeds United as a potential move, and that means that we are not out of the conversation yet. And if we make a good enough argument, then this can absolutely work, because I think Szmodics fits perfectly into this squad. When he's got a squad that he wants, Daniel Farker really likes his loose number 10s, and this is a weird way of phrasing it, but for example, Jorginho Rutel last season played in the 10, but often he'd pick up the ball like at our own corner flag. There was one assist where he picked the ball up at our own corner flag, did a no-look pass to Crescencio Somerville running up the middle of the pitch, and it ended perfectly for us, and it was fantastic. And what tended to happen at Norwich was it'd be a 4-2-3-1, wing-backs on each side, and then the 3 loose 10s in the middle allowed to drift across the pitch. I think Szmodics fits perfectly here because that's exactly how we played at Blackburn. Creative, getting on the end of chances, and finding the spaces where they existed. And either way, he adds plenty of depth to the squad, even if he doesn't necessarily start. Look at last season, it was an ongoing conversation about how we didn't have many game changes, and that's a good way of putting it. And I think he fits that bill perfectly. And even if he is starting, it means someone like Aronson is on the bench, who I think will do really well in the Championship. And outside of all of that, from purely an optics point of view and a squad building point of view, this is a fantastic signing that sets out the club's stall perfectly. That says loud and clear, we're here to do business this year, and we're here to get promoted, and we are not pissing about. So getting this deal done would be absolutely huge for Leeds United, at least in my opinion. But as always, I want to know what your opinion is. Let me know in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, even become a channel member, all that fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you later. Also, it's just fun to say Sammy Szmodics. It's like he's got superhero name, hasn't he? It's great. Ta-ra.